Alrighty. Today we're going to be talking about different ways that you can collaborate inside Streak. For those of you who are joining us, if you're not a Streak user yet, hopefully this will be new information to you that will excite you about joining Streak. If you've already been a Streak user, hopefully today you'll take away some tidbits, some fun facts, and some new knowledge about what it means to effectively collaborate inside Streak. We're going to talk about overall permissions. So what that means from a Streak standpoint, you can have team permissions. There's also pipeline permissions. There is team access as well as custom access that exists inside a pipeline. We'll also talk about notification preferences, a couple other custom permissions, as well as email sharing, how automatic email sharing kind of is permission based and how that allows you to effectively collaborate here in Streak. So again, I'll try to pause along the way for questions. If anything comes up that you see and you have questions on, feel free to let us know down at that questions section. And yeah, we'll hopefully get to you. So when we think about how collaboration works in Streak, right, Streak is an extension built on top of the Gmail inbox. I'm a Streak user, Zach is a Streak user, but we access it individually from our Gmail inbox. However, there are what we call shared pipelines. So a pipeline that I have access to, Zach can also have access to, and that is one level of collaboration. We can both be working inside the pipeline, similar to how you work inside a Google spreadsheet or a Google Doc. I can see what deals Zach is updating, I can update deals, and we can also chat and mention and collaborate inside the tool as well. The boxes are shared records. So inside a pipeline, you have what we call boxes. Those are rows, and that allows you to understand, okay, this deal, this lead, this account, whatever you call it in your business, is a shared record. So if me and Zach have access to the same pipeline, we have access to the same records. And then another really effective way to collaborate in Streak is using saved views. So let's say I'm working a subset group of deals, Zach is working a subset group of deals. We have an assigned to column that kind of identifies who is the account owner on that box. You can use a saved view to show only the deals you're working, and Zach can have a saved view as well to show only the deals he's working. My Gmail inbox and the box connection is really what ties work together. So any email communication that I have, I can choose to put that inside a box. And that is me kind of, labeling this email, this deal needs to be tracked inside Streak so that other teammates can have access to it and understand what's going on. Kind of 3 layers of general access here, team level access. So if you're on a Streak team of 3 people, it's you and 2 other people. One person can be the owner and the payer. The 2 other people would be members. Within that, there's pipeline level access. So if it's a team of 3, I can have a private pipeline, choose not to share that with anyone, or we can share pipelines with everyone or specific people. And then when we go 1 layer deeper, all of the rows inside a pipeline, you can choose whether or not you have access to that or your teammates have access to that based on a couple different conditional pieces of logic. So we'll kind of demo that and get into that as well. But kind of a general over speaking, you have a team, you have pipelines. Inside the pipelines are boxes. You can decide who sees what based on all those things. There's a couple different common collaboration mistakes that we just wanted to briefly go over. Commonly, people will say, hey, I added my teammate to my Streak team, but they can't see my pipeline. Adding somebody to the team does not always default their access to specific pipelines, right? You have specific control over that. So if you add someone to the team, you want to make sure you update their pipeline permissions so that they can view the pipeline as well. How can I share a saved view or make a saved view private? Super good question there. We'll dive into how you can share saved views so that if you want to, share that saved view with someone else on the team, there's an easy way to share that. When it comes to making saved views private, not totally possible here in Streak because a saved view is just a filtered subset group of boxes within the pipeline. So depending on how we set up pipeline permissions is how we can make specific pipelines viewable or private. And then automatic email sharing behavior can be kind of confusing because I can have emails in my inbox that I choose to put inside Streak. And I know that maybe Zach has had communication with a person I'm communicating with, but I can't see Zach's emails inside Streak. There's some level of permissions. There's some level of validation that you have to go through in order to say, yep, go ahead and share my emails. And Amy can view all of the emails that I have. And the last kind of mistake is figuring out the right recipe for notification preferences. And again, we can dive into this deeper. I'll go ahead and take a pause here and see what's going on in the chat, or Zach, if there's anything you want to pause me on.
No questions so far. Yeah, I think we're looking good.
Great, thanks. All right, so what I'm going to do next is just kind of give you an overview of some of the things I just chatted about. So we're going to go into my streak pipeline here. And I'm actually going to go into my coffee pipeline. So here you can see is a perfect example of a sales process. And when we talk about pipeline permissions, that's all viewable here within the share icon. So what I'm looking at right now is a streak pipeline. What I'm looking at here are pipeline permissions for this one streak pipeline. You can see I have a handful of different pipelines. But if we take a step back, we zoom out, we go to that first level of access from the Teams page here in Streak. This is where you understand and can add or remove specific people to the team. But here, all I have are owners or members. And anyone that gets added to my Arbutus Coffee Roasters team then would get default access to any pipelines on this team. So you can see, for example, I have 58 team-wide pipelines. So if I add a new person here, depending on what each pipeline permission settings are, that means that that person will either have or not have access. And so what I mean by that is if we pivot back to my wholesale coffee pipeline, you can see this word here. It says team access, and it's saying everybody on my coffee team, the 14 members that I just showed you on the previous screen, they have assignee permissions. So what that means is they need to be assigned boxes, what we call records, leads in the pipeline, in order to view. You can see there's a handful of different options here: editor, viewer, assignee, creator, observer. These are all different permission roles that you have custom access to set at a per pipeline level. So assignee is a really good default to have for team access, because the default means Zach can see only boxes assigned to him. I can see boxes assigned to me, and so on and so forth. When we talk about what it means to have deals assigned, there's a specific assigned to column. So in this example, this is a demo account of ours. Let's just go into a specific user. If I was Harlow, this would be the view that I would see. I have 32 boxes assigned to me. And because the default share access here is that everybody has assignee, that means that Harlow sees all boxes assigned to her. Now, what we're looking at directly under team access is people with custom access. So you can create specific rules based on individuals to decide, oh, Franklin, actually, he's not an active sales rep, but he does need to have visibility into this pipeline. So I want to give him kind of the most basic level of access, only a viewer, which means Franklin can come into this pipeline and view everything, but cannot edit. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so we can view that a little better. So you can see it from a closer view, right? We have a bunch of different kind of roles that you can give at a default team access level or at a custom level. If I realize I actually want Franklin to be an admin, we can modify that here. That would control the permission set for this specific email address. We can also do the same at the default level. If you're like, you know what, it's fine if everyone has editor access, let's go ahead and make that modification. Now everyone would come in, see the entire pipeline, and edit the entire pipeline. So it's really based on your use case, what's going to make the most sense for you. But the most important takeaway here is if we think about my team, adding somebody to the team does not always mean they're going to have access to all of your pipelines, or sometimes adding them to the team means they will have access to all your pipelines. It's all based on how you choose to set your default access here. So if the default for everyone is no access, you can then go ahead and decide to say no access to everyone, custom access for specific people. Hopefully that's kind of making sense here. I'm going to change lanes just a little bit and pivot back to another very interesting, fun little tidbit of how you can collaborate in Streak. This speaks to using emails. So let's say, for example, Zach and I are working a deal in our coffee pipeline, and I realize that Zach, in this example, the demo account, Harlow and Flory are going back and forth talking about an upcoming conference. In this account, my name is Malone. So you can see I'm another kind of demo user here, and I'm inside a pipeline. I'm inside one of the boxes. I can see all of the details related to this deal. I can click into this email, even though this email is not in my specific inbox, and I can actually choose to reply all. So reply all is a super powerful tool because it allows you to view your teammates' inbox, view your teammates' emails, and then reply to those if you need to jump in on the thread. I'll take a quick pause here so I can drink some water, as well as we can see what's good in that question chat, unless you've got it, Zach.
Yeah, Joey asked, any reason why our team should not turn on email sharing?
Great question, Joey. So if we talk about email sharing as a tool for efficiency, I typically always recommend everyone to have it on. And what we mean by auto share my emails is you have this toggle turned on. And let me actually go back to my wholesale coffee pipeline, excuse me. So when this is turned on, that's me telling Streak, hey, anytime Harlow wants to see communication between a contact and herself, if I have this turned on, if I have any communication with that contact, it will also give Harlow visibility to it. So it saves the notification work. If you're on a sales team, sometimes there's some cross-pollination and communication between a contact that I reach out to, but a contact that's actually my teammate, it's their lead, right? When this is turned on, I don't have to manually share my emails with my other teammate. They can just come into a box and they can see, for example, specific emails without having to request access. So if I have emails that they want to be able to see, maybe I'll pull up a different one here. It's really just an email visibility efficiency tool. So if you are cool sharing all of your emails, because sometimes there's overlap between contacts that you reach out to and contacts that your team reach out to, having that turned on will make it so that you're defaulting to allow your teammates to view emails. And this doesn't necessarily mean it's everything inside my inbox, right? You still get a say in terms of what you put inside Streak. But if, for example, this feature is turned on, and I have communication in my inbox with this user, then they automatically go into this Streak box. And it makes it so anyone else on my team can see those communications as well. So here we go. Here's a perfect example. You can see here's some email communications that are directly in my inbox because it says me, but Harlow could come into this box and read these communications as well. So it's not every single email in my inbox. It's just email communication between specific contacts that you set.
Yeah, super helpful. And Joey, hopefully that helps answer your other question. He said this is only for emails added to the box. So that sparkle icon that Amy was just displaying, automatic email sharing, this can be toggled on for a specific contact or for a domain or an organization like at starbucks.com. So if that's toggled on, it will scan your inbox and everyone else on your Streak team's inbox for emails with that contact or that organization, and then automatically pull them into the box. Few more questions here, Amy. Someone says, if everyone has editor access, can they also see all attachments within Streak regardless of email sharing?
Great question. So editor access is a little bit different than email sharing. If everyone is set to an editor, it does mean that any person can come into any record and make specific changes to any of the Streak data. When it comes to files that are added to a box, the only way that I would be able to see those files added to a box is if an email that has attachments is added. So editor is a little bit different than files because it speaks to making Streak edits. However, if a teammate who is an editor adds an email to a box and that email has an attachment, because I can view this box, I can go view the attachments. I can go view the files. But if the teammates never add any emails with any attachments, even though I'm still an editor, I wouldn't be able to see those files because I haven't been able to get access to those emails. So I would kind of separate the two and think about it as editor means you can make Streak changes, but to view files, somebody either needs to manually add a file to a box for you to view it or add an email with an attachment for you to view it. Great question, Shauna. There was another question here about access for old emails for new employees. So I think what that potentially speaking to is like, if this feature is turned on and I have a handful of emails with this contact in my inbox, but I'm on this and I'm still on the streak team, but I haven't emailed with this person in 2 to 3 years. If you're on the streak team and there's emails in your inbox, regardless of the date, those emails can get added to streak. If you get removed from the streak team and that user is not what we call archived, we wouldn't be able to have access to those emails. So I'm not sure if that's answering your question specifically, Shauna, but let us know. Were you going to say something, Zach?
I was just going to say something about the files, but I think it's okay. I was basically going to say files, if they're added manually, there is, and Amy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is a world where you could have access to the box, but you may not be able to access that file if it is manually added, and I haven't shared Amy on that specific file.
Yeah, and that's a great place to pivot into, because with Streak, we have a feature here called custom permissions. And you can see it's a drop-down option within I'm in a pipeline in the pipeline permission settings. So I've created a custom permission already that gives access to the boxes only. Custom permissions are a way for you to say, hey, these are the specific rules that I want based on whether or not they're assigned or not. And in this section, there is a file section. So if, for example, you don't want files to be viewed by specific people, you can create a custom permission set that essentially gives them access to everything inside Streak except for files. But you can see in this example, you have a lot more control in what a user can and can't do. And just like Zach was saying, we could create a custom permission set, exclude the ability for anyone to view, create, or add files.
Perfect. And Shauna just asked another question about files. What about files as attachments from outside emails, like a customer email added to Streak by an employee? How can multiple people access those? So I was just saying, if an email thread is added to a box in Streak and that thread contains an attachment, the attachment will automatically be accessible within that box. So anyone on your team that has access to that box should then be able to also access the attachment and view it.
Yes, exactly. I'm not sure if I have any files in this pipeline, so hard for me to give an example, but hopefully Zach's explanation was clear enough for you. So loving all the questions. Are there any other questions in there, Zach?
That covers all of the questions so far, but keep them coming if there's anything else we can help answer.
Alrighty, so the next thing that I want to kind of pivot to is another efficient way to collaborate in Streak. And this speaks to using what we call a Streak share link to share specific links of things from Streak to other teammates. If you're often in Slack and you want to be able to say, hey, go check out this box because there's exciting things happening in it right now, you can expand a box. You can come over here. This is a hyperlink button, and you can share a link directly to this box. So this is a Streak share that essentially gives you access to say, hey, check out what's going on in this box. And yeah, that is kind of one level. And then that also exists in a saved view standpoint. So if, for example, I create a saved view and maybe it's kind of a saved view that I've turned into a custom report, I can come over here, modify the pipeline visualization, and I can now say, hey, let me go ahead and maybe I need to just make it a grouping. Oh no. Is it gone? Maybe we moved it, Zach?
Sorry, what was it?
The Streak share for saved views? Maybe she's not on here right now.
Share a link to a save view.
Yeah.
Might have been moved.
Looks like it was moved.
Okay.
Well, we'll pivot to one more ability where you can share. So let me pull up an email here. Here's a perfect example of an email. I'm back in my Gmail inbox here. You can see again, there's a hyperlink. I can go ahead and share this email. And what I really like about what this does is it essentially shares the email kind of as a full thread. So you can kind of click through and see what's going on here. And even if you don't have Gmail, anyone can read this streak share link and go and see email communication. So this is one other tidbit maybe you guys don't know about that can be really helpful for sending emails across your Slack or to people really quickly. It's the streak share icon here. Do a quick pause for any feedback or questions.
Not on this specifically, but someone was asking the ability to hide a file or a specific column.
Sure. Yeah. When we're in a pipeline, a lot of different flexibility to do that. So you first want to look inside the main pipeline that you're in. And if there's a handful of different columns that you want to hide, I would use the column manager to do it, because the column manager gives you an overview of all of these different columns and allows you to say, go ahead and hide a few of these for me. And when I'm doing it for the wholesale coffee, you can see I'm editing the default view, but I could also come into a saved view. Let's go back into my city saved view, hide a couple columns, and the behavior is going to be different inside a saved view versus your overall pipeline. If you just really quickly want to say, hey, let me hide this pipeline, there's also a hide option at the column header. So that allows you to hide it, and then you can see the UI here is kind of notifying you that there's the column collapsed between these two columns. So a lot of flexibility in kind of creating a custom way to hide columns. In the case of hiding files, the only option I really have for you there is to hide, would be to remove them. Because we don't have the ability to hide columns kind of in the interface here, the only options are either remove that file from a box, or let's talk about how we can make a potential custom permission that would essentially make it so certain people cannot view files.
Exactly. Or if you're manually adding files, let's say I have a Google Sheet or a Google Doc that I'm adding as a file attachment to a box. If I'm inside of that Google Doc or Google Sheet, I can choose who has access to that. So if I don't want a specific person on my team to have access, I would adjust it in the share permission settings here, which Amy is going over. I can restrict it entirely, or I can make it so only certain people on my team have access. If they don't have access, they can click on the file, but they won't be able to view it.
Correct. Cool. All right.
A few more questions here. They're asking about maybe not just like collapsing a column, but hiding it altogether so that other teammates cannot see it.
The only option there would be potentially to delete the column. There isn't really an interface that would allow me to hide without the option to unhide unless we choose to delete. When it comes to trying to hide specific data within a column, my recommendation would be to use what we call the assignee permission. And if people are set to the assignee permission, then that means that if Malone is assigned this box, she can see all of the details of it. But maybe the column that you want to have, that you kind of want to hide from specific people, it would just be blank for any box that they're assigned, if that's making sense.
Yeah, Joey, hopefully that helps explain the column question that you had. Who's also asking, and I think this is referring to the reply all. So Amy, if you have a thread going on with someone and then I go into that box, open up that email thread, I need to jump in for you because you're out of office or for some other reason. Does it always start a new thread, or will it be a part of the existing thread?
It'll stay threaded. So let me go back to that example. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Hello. There we go. And I went in here. Don't know why this isn't working. Okay. So when I choose to click reply here, it looks as if I'm in my own individual message. Hey. All right, I'm just sending a test email here. So it looks as if I am in my own brand new email, but when I click send, it'll just take one moment here, you'll see how the message stays threaded. So even though I originally was not on this thread, I reply, and as the message comes through, it's all as its third reply in the same exact thread with the same subject line. So the customer can reference what happened previously. Perfect. Here we go. You can see this is the first message. Malone's not on it. This is the second message. Malone is still not on it. Now Malone's on the thread.
Perfect. Yeah, Joey's mentioning that he's noticed where it starts a new thread. Are there any scenarios where a new thread would be started if using the reply all feature?
The only time that I've noticed that is if you change the subject line yourself. So if you click reply all and you're changing the subject line to something else, that would start a new thread. If you don't do anything and you just send a reply, it should stay threaded. If you're coming into issues there, we may want to debug with you kind of outside of this.
Yeah, sounds great. And then another question. If an email does not have a reply forward or reply all option, is it simply a email sharing issue? I'm not completely sure on that. I haven't come across that before.
Yeah, I haven't come across that either. With Streak, the reply all feature, it looked a little bit different, right? These are Gmail's icons. Anytime you're on an email in your inbox, you should always have access to that, right? I always have access to reply or forward. If reply all is not here, it's because there's no one else in the to or the from for me to reply to. But you should be prompted to either always reply and always forward. If there's no reply all, it's because there's no one else for you to reply to. It's a two-person message. So you're just replying directly back to, in this example, notifications app.
Great. I think that's might be one more. Oh, and then also notifications. Do you want to go over notifications?
Oh yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we'll
Thanks,
cover this
Joey.
briefly. So again, when I'm in my Gmail inbox, you can get to Streak notifications directly from here by using the Gmail settings gear icon here. To choose from there, see all settings. Now you can see up at the top, I'm kind of looking at everything from a Gmail standpoint, but as I keep going through, I see the Streak settings. This is where you can kind of configure customizations around how Streak exists inside your inbox. So if we scroll down to the notification settings, this is where you can control what notifications you receive from us. I primarily recommend typically changes to boxes you follow being enabled. That can be really helpful if there are things happening on boxes that you're assigned to. Boxes that you follow is essentially a box you're assigned to. Changes to all their boxes, we can choose to have that enabled or disabled. If you really want to stay active in a pipeline because maybe you're the manager and you want to know what your team is doing, having this enabled is helpful because if I'm not assigned a box, but things happen to those boxes, I'll get a notification about it. And then you can see, you can kind of decide what notifications are the most important. You also have the flexibility for a browser notification. Browser notifications pretty mellow, I would say. You'll see the banner up at the top flash once or twice for browser notifications, but email notifications are where it's the most powerful. Stage changes, new comments, and if a box is assigned to you, I would say those are the most helpful to configure. Let's see if I can show what a browser notification looks like. Zach, do you think you could go into a box and mention me potentially? Maybe if it's even on that wholesale coffee pipeline on that Cafe Juniper.
Yes.
Okay. And mention Malone, please. And what we should see happen is some sort of flash up here at the top.
Tag.
Let's see if we'll get to it. Looks like I got a notification here. Yeah, it's a little bit finicky. Oh, you know what? I didn't have it turned on. Okay, let's try one more time.
Yeah. All right, posted.
Interesting. We'll see if we can follow up with you, Joey, but it's really just a basic flash. I think maybe my system doesn't, I might need to refresh and update my browser to make it happen 100%, but we'll follow up with you on that, Joey. Sorry for the flop. How else are we doing? Love the engagement.
Yeah, lots of questions. Shauna, I'm not completely sure I understand your question. She says, what issue would cause a lack of ability to move an old email you are not on to a different streak? I'm not sure if you mean into a different box potentially. But yeah, happy to, yeah, Amy, if you have any idea.
That one's a little tricky. Issue would cause a lack of ability.
I mean, if you're not on the email thread and it's not in your inbox, you already don't have the ability to manually add that thread to a new box
Different box
in
or
a
new
different
pipeline.
pipeline.
She just clarified over comments and said different box or new pipeline.
Okay.
So I think it maybe depends on if what access you have, where that old email or that old box is living, what access you have there. So if you're not assigned specific boxes, but you kind of want access to them and you want to move them, that's where my head's going first. With moving boxes across pipelines, it could also be like a data sync issue. So maybe your pipelines don't have all the same columns and it makes it tricky to move. But Shauna, it could be helpful to see kind of a screen recording of what's going on. If you send it to us over support, there's a chat functionality that you can actually record your screen on. I will show you where that chat functionality exists. If you're on the Streak homepage here, this icon is our chat functionality, and right away you can record your screen. So it would be really helpful for you to record your screen, send that over to us, and then we might be able to clarify. And Joey, your question around do the browser notifications get stored anywhere? They don't, but definitely understand the overwhelming feeling of the number of email notifications. Maybe there's a couple opportunities for us to kind of hone in on your workflow and see if there's ways to only send you notifications that really matter to the team, like maybe only using the task tool. So if we can connect with you after this, that could potentially be helpful. All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for extending the time. I know these are usually 30-minute classes. I will just close out and let you know we have a couple upcoming classes coming into the pipeline, specifically tomorrow, a class on how to use tasks. So Joey, could be beneficial to take register for that class so you at least get the recording. If it doesn't work for you, we still send you the recording when you register. And that might give you a little bit more inspo into figuring out what notifications are going to prime the team to work efficiently. And then Zach's hosting a class with us next week on using a native dialer in Streak. Super excited about that. That's the first dialer of its kind to natively integrate with Streak. And a couple other really handful stuff coming down the pipeline through February. So we'd love to see you guys there, and we'd always love your feedback as well. So feel free to email us or reach out to support@streak.com for any further questions. Thank you again, Zach, for holding it down in the chat, and I will close the event now. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.